Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the joint GSA DOE RFI for technologies for healthy and resilient buildings. We're going to get started momentarily, but before doing so, just a few logistics. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be shared with our mailing list as well as posted to the GSA website. You all are in listen mode only, but you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom panel to open the Q&A and ask questions. And the Q&A will happen after all the presentations, but you don't need to wait to ask questions. In fact, we encourage you to ask them well in advance. And with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Kevin Powell, the Director of GSA's Center for Emerging Building Technologies and the GSA Proving Ground.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrea. And I want to thank all of you for having taken time out of your day to join this webinar. This is our GPG program's 10th birthday. And truly, actually, it is all of you. It is the people who have been interested in our program, everything from casual presentations of capability to full participation in the program, submitting to the RFI, being part of a test bed. That's really made this last decade feel so consequential. So over the next hour, we'll give a brief overview of the DOE and GSA testbed programs that you'll be submitting your information to, and the types of technologies that we're looking for, and the mechanics of submitting information to and participating in our program. And we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. That's really what this is about. So next slide. Big picture, each year, GSA and DOE identify topic areas where we feel there are emerging technologies that can improve commercial buildings broadly and federal buildings specifically for GSA, but that these are technologies that are essentially unproven. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, and really need field validation for folks to have confidence in deploying them. So this year we're focused on resilient, efficient, healthy buildings, more specifically technologies that maintain healthy indoor air, that increase building resilience, and improve on-site photovoltaics. Before we do that, Andrea, I wanted to run that first poll just to get a better sense of our audience. So if folks could respond to this poll, that'll be great. And then Andrea, I don't see results, but that doesn't mean anything, I guess. Do you see them?
Yes, so we have about 91 people voting. We'll give it just another minute, and then I will share the results with everyone.
Great, thank you.
I think they're trickling in. I'll go ahead and end the poll.
We got a lot of small business here. That is exciting. So it's actually a kind of an interesting mix, I have to say. But really, nearly half of you are small businesses. And that's something that certainly GSA is very, I mean, just generally speaking, we are very supportive of small business, but there's actually some specific essentially programs that are really designed to support that. So I'm really glad to see that in this response. Let's move on to the next slide, Andrea. So just, I guess you could say a quick introduction about about us, the folks who are going to be talking to you today. You have myself, of course. I am the director for the Center for Emerging Building Technologies at GSA. So rightly, I guess you could say I'm the instigator, along with some colleagues over at Department of Energy. Next up is Robert Megley. Robert is the new guy on our DOE team. So as the new guy, we tasked him with covering not only his own program at the Solar Energy Technologies Office, but also the two other program offices who are responsible for this RFI with us. That is the Building Technologies Office and the Federal Energy Management Program. Next up will be Wale Odukamaya. He is our technical lead for this RFI. He's with the National Renewable Energy Lab, or NREL. Wally will provide more detailed description of the types of technologies we're seeking. And last, and perhaps most importantly, is Michael Hobson, who is the project lead for this RFI. And he's going to cover all of the logistics and the mechanics of your submission, what to expect if you're selected as a semifinalist in particular. Next slide. Just take a couple of minutes to describe our GSA Proving Ground program, and then I'll turn it over to Robert. Next slide. Just a sort of a big picture snapshot of GSA. We are the landlord for the civilian government. That means we really do just one thing, and because of our scale and mission, I think we do it remarkably well, if I say so myself. But basically, we build, operate, and maintain commercial real estate that provides state-of-the-art workplaces that help our tenant agencies deliver their programs at best value to the taxpayers. So that means we really look to drive down costs and operate essentially the most efficient and most effective buildings possible. One way we do this is by smart investments in next generation technologies. Next slide. I guess the key thing, and some of you may have seen this and others maybe not, is this so-called technology valley of death. And that's really what this program, that is to say, this joint program is really about. We started the GPG program, as I mentioned, a decade ago, and it was really stood up to answer a simple question that our commissioner asked at the time. At that time, this was another previous crisis, and it was the big recession of 2008. There was the Recovery Act, as it was called. We invested a lot in innovative technologies, and the commissioner essentially asked us, well, which of these technologies deliver best? That is what the program was stood up to answer. It was very successful. We operationalized that effort as the RFI that we're discussing right now, and we've issued that annually ever since. Next slide. So I think the good thing about turning 10 is that you can look back, see where you've been, and assess. And in short, as of last year, COVID has delayed this year. It's delayed our tracking of this year's numbers, but we've evaluated more than 70 technologies, and 15 of them we've invested in and are deploying widely. And those technologies, and this is really the bottom line for a program like ours, they're delivering a lot of savings for our agency. So 15 million, more than 15 million annually, nearly 200 million over the life cycle of those investments. And they all have good payback, and they all are technologies that we can operate and install, and our tenants find effective where they affect tenants. That's really the whole point of the program. That's what we're looking to achieve out of this RFI as well, right? We're looking to get some of those most innovative technologies where there has been that research investment, and then we're going to validate that they work in the real world and then invest in them, assuming that they deliver. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Robert.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and hello, everyone. It's my pleasure today to represent three distinguished Department of Energy organizations collaborating in this RFI: the Solar Energy Technology Office, CETO, the Federal Energy Management Program, FEMP, and the Building Technologies Office, BTO. First, I'd like to describe the Solar Energy Technology Office, my office. Next slide, please. We at CETO fund early stage research and development in photovoltaics, concentrating solar thermal power, soft cost system integration, and then my sub-team, manufacturing competitiveness. We share the goal of seeking to improve the affordability and reliability of solar technologies for domestic benefit. As I said, I hang my hat in the manufacturing and competitiveness team, and that work centers on companies and groups creating and developing solar technology, skilled workforce readiness, and similar projects that facilitate cost reduction, reliability, and commercialization. Overall, CETO de-risks innovative concepts and move them. On the chart, you can see sort of from the left to the right is maturity. And as we de-risk various programs in these vertical categories, they become more bankable, they lose risk, and they ideally will both attract growth, more participation in some of the workforce programs, or for some of the more commercial programs, subsequent investment and scale up to commercialization. Obviously, from the way this chart is set up, you can see that collaboration is extremely important to the function of the team. Without the collaboration being strong and robust, we wouldn't nearly have been able to manage more than 375 active projects in 38 states in the District of Columbia. Now, the breakdown is about 25% of these are businesses and nonprofits. 40% leverage skills and technologies and techniques available at our national labs. And then about a quarter of these programs are at universities. So you can see that we're hitting stages across this chart and across the country. The overall thrust is to enable domestic innovation and leverage our entrepreneurial spirit to advance new ideas and remove barriers in solar energy. Next slide, please.
And Robert, just a quick note that your screen is all black, so we're not seeing you as you're speaking.
Yeah, I apologize. I have a little technical issue. I'm going to go to a backup camera here.
Okay,
Thank you
no
for
problem.
pointing that out. Can you see me okay now?
Yes, thanks.
All right, well, I don't think you needed to see my face for the description of CETO, but if you do want to follow up, this would be the person to contact first for sure. So I'm glad you can see my face now. But let's talk about the Federal Energy Management Program, or FEMP. FEMP facilitates strategic energy management and enables federal agencies to meet energy-related goals, ensure that mission assurance occurs during normal operations, and importantly, prepares for mission assurance during conditions that impact normal operations. FEMP is working with its Department of Energy counterpart offices, for instance, CETO and others, to connect federal agencies with technology providers for resilient, efficient, and secure solutions. The point of contact, if sites or agencies are interested in participating and would like to connect, please contact Hayes Jones. Next slide, please. Now we're going to consider the Building Technologies Office, or BTO. The BTO invests in energy efficient and related technologies to make homes and buildings more affordable and comfortable, and make them and make the United States more sustainable, secure, and prosperous. The commercial building subprogram is focused on accelerating the voluntary uptake of significant energy performance improvements in both existing and new commercial buildings. And so I'm sure you can see how field evaluations really do play an essential part in this program, as these testbed projects provide incredibly valuable real-world performance information and feedback for technology research and development in our office, our organization, and beyond. Next slide, please. So this graphic, I think, is pretty amazing in that it really shows how many different partnerships there are within this organization with non-federal organizations and groups that play an integral role for these field evaluations of technology. Voluntarily structured partnerships can provide an open and ongoing pathway to identify a range of technical needs, even identifying the unknown unknowns, as well as to provide field sites that may be applicable for evaluation across multiple technologies and systems. Let's see, the Building Technology Office partners with 250 commercial organizations through the Better Buildings Alliance, and Better Buildings partners represent market leaders that are driving innovation and leading the way for energy reduction. They represent 32 of the Fortune 100 companies, 12 of the top 25 US employers, and remarkably, 30% of all commercial building floor space in the United States. It's, I think, critical to point out that a number of these partners have volunteered their buildings for the opportunity that for the unique opportunity that we're discussing today. So I can summarize by saying that these three parts of the Department of Energy, CETO, FEMP, and BTO, are excited to participate together in this RFI. The opportunity to field test and prove emerging commercial technologies is synergistic with our goals in our organizations and the goals of the projects that we manage and the goals of ultimately progress of the United States. Technology that can make more energy economical, efficient, resilient, safer, and more comfortable buildings is important for meeting America's future energy needs. And with that, I thank you very much, and I'll pass it along to Wally.
All right, thank you, Robert, for introducing the various DOE programs that are partnering with GSA on this, and thank you, Kevin, for introducing the program and the GSA side of things. So I will speak a little bit to more of the specifics of the RFI and what we're looking for from a technology standpoint. Next slide, please. All right, so as was previously described by Kevin, in terms of technology maturity, what we're really looking for is pre and early commercial technologies, broadly in use, readily available. Commercial technologies that are broadly in use and readily available today are not appropriate for this. We really want technologies that have not been commercialized or that are early in the commercialization process. And the idea is to use GSA's extensive stock of buildings as a proving ground to achieve deeper market penetration of these technologies. Again, as Kevin mentioned, every year we kind of target a different subset of technologies. This year in particular, we're interested in 4 kind of broad technology categories. The first are energy efficient indoor air quality management technologies. Second is ventilation strategies to promote healthy indoors. The third is high efficiency on-site solar PV and storage. And lastly, energy efficient resilient technologies that extend a building's ability to survive in a passive manner disconnected from the grid and continue operations. Next slide, please. Okay, so to go a little bit deeper on each of those 4 technology categories. So with the first, again, we're looking for efficient indoor air quality management technologies. What we're looking for here is technologies that combine energy efficiency and indoor air quality as an integrated request. So historically, those 2 things have sort of been treated separately. And so we're looking for technologies that integrate those. A couple examples of what that might look like are multi-zonal sensing and control technologies, or sensor-driven indoor air controls that sense whether it's occupancy, temperature, whatever, and control the indoor air accordingly. Next slide, please. So for the second category, we're looking for integrated, efficient ventilation strategies that mitigate threats to air quality. And this is kind of a timely topic that we're targeting, with obviously multiple threats to the indoor air environment, including global pandemics, wildfires that we've seen in the western regions of the US. So some examples of the type of technologies that we're targeting there are higher performance HVAC filtration systems, improved air sealing in ducts, and also efficient decentralized air filtration that can improve the health of the indoor air environment without necessarily requiring major retrofits or upgrades to the central HVAC system. Next slide, please. Okay, and on the PV and storage front, examples of what we're looking for there include high efficiency PV with improved materials of construction, fabrication processes, and/or installation methods. Building integrated photovoltaics are of particular interest this year, and also just generally innovative PV systems and associated storage are of interest as well. Next slide. Okay, and with the fourth and final category, again, we're looking for resilient technologies that extend a building's operation. So examples of this might be advanced opaque retrofit envelope technologies that support passive heating, cooling, and/or ventilation, window retrofit approaches such as snap-on panels or attachments to windows that improve energy efficiency, phase control or load coordination, software solutions that enable control and prioritization of power to critical loads, whether that be through load point mapping and identification of critical loads or other kind of software or controls approaches, and also water conservation technologies that that enable continued operation, that support continued operation when water supply is disrupted. Next slide. Okay, so as part of the program, an important question that we ask is how do we measure success of these technologies? And I think there's kind of two high-level categories. One in terms of the technology itself and how it performs, and the second is sort of the financing of the technology and ensuring that it makes sense from an economic perspective. So with the first one there, we're really looking at, and these are questions that we ask as part of the application process, which Michael will talk about in a couple minutes. We're looking for the impact in terms of duration of maintained services for productivity or continuity of operations, improved air quality and occupant comfort. And from the economic standpoint, we're looking for impact in terms of payback, energy savings or utility cost savings, or any combination of the two at both the component or technology level and the whole building level. Next slide. So Michael will now talk about the specifics of the RFI itself, how to apply, and essentially what it means to participate.
Great, and thank you, Wally. And Michael, before you jump in, we just wanted to launch a poll to get a little bit of feedback from you all about what technology category you are all interested in. And so we'll just take a moment. Okay, we'll give you just a couple more seconds and then we'll end the poll. And it's great. It looks like a really even distribution. That's great to see. So Michael, with that, let me turn it over to you to talk about the RFI mechanics and what it means to participate.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, very interesting to see the broad distribution of companies that are looking at these 4 categories, and thanks, Wally, for introducing that. So let's talk about how to apply. We've had the RFI open for about a month now. As you see here, we have it advertised on beta.sam.gov. We've been working on this for years. We feel as though the website should be pretty self-explanatory. If there are issues, I am the go-to person to ask those questions. One thing to note, and this is something that was brought up to us, is that the web-based application doesn't allow you to save your work. I'm sure some of you have realized that with some frustration, and we're sorry that that happened. We feel it's a good idea to develop your information elsewhere. So on our GPG RFI page, we've created a Word version of the application so that you can fill that out, you can develop it, and then you can copy and paste all the information onto the application. Let's go to the next page. So we're looking at 5 factors that we want to consider in selecting your technology. First off, innovation, of course, that's what our programs are designed around. Performance, we're looking for something resulting in a significant improvement. Costs and the savings that come with that, a positive return on investment is what we're looking for. The deployment potential, both in our federal facilities and private facilities throughout the country. And then finally, the last one, the technical risk. We need to understand the possible impact of changes that your technology could have. And go to the next slide. Benefits of participating with us in our program. So participating with us, we're a substantial GSA and DOE federal program. Our programs have been around for a while. We have high visibility. Engaging with us, we pilot each technology in realistic circumstances. The M&V is managed by others. Go back to that slide. We seem to have gone backwards. There we go. Thank you. So another benefit, you'll receive independent insights. The results of these demonstrations will provide those independent insights and how the technology will fit for public and private sector buildings. The publicly available M&V findings will inform the public and private sector investment decisions, so that information will be out to everyone. And then finally, by validating real world experience, you can expect to increase your technology's market acceptance, which we think is a pretty big deal. Go to the next slide. So your contribution. So there's 2 different ways here. With GSA, we have 2 different paths for the contribution. Either the technology is gifted, or we provide some type of alternative financing mechanism, like a utility energy service contract. The installation will be funded by GSA. With the Department of Energy, those details and costs will be negotiated between the vendor and the host site partner. So that will work out in the future. As far as what you're also going to contribute as far as time and travel, we do need your input on how your technology works. We need the national lab engineers we need your help to develop the testbed design, the project plan, the reporting. That's something that we definitely need you to assist us with. Also providing some guidance on that, on the installation. How do we commission your product? And then how do we engage the tenant on its benefits? And then finally, we do have on-site meetings. In lieu of the current situation, we hope that when we do start the demonstration, we will be having on-site meetings. You can expect at least 1 to 3 trips to that host site for those meetings. One thing that you should note is that neither GSA or Department of Energy will provide direct funding to participate in the evaluation. Go to the next slide. So who's responsible for what? What are the roles and responsibilities? I'll ask you to look at the right side for what your responsibilities are for the vendor. First off, providing that technology in the ways that we described on the last slide, and then also supporting the design, the installation, the commissioning, and then helping us through the process. You can see here where everyone else falls in line. For the federal programs, we do the overall project management. We coordinate and fund the M&V. We write the report. The host site will oversee all the contracting. They'll manage the installation. They'll facilitate getting a response from the tenant and that feedback. And then finally, the national labs will be doing the actual M&V. They'll be designing that project plan. They'll be giving us the evaluation of the site, collect all of that data, and then write the report. So let's go to the next slide, please. Potential host sites. So GSA is as most people probably know, we're mostly office buildings. We own over 1,500 buildings, as Kevin said at the beginning. 90% of those buildings are over 100,000 square feet. And what should be noted is that 80% of our portfolio's energy spend are with buildings that are 200,000 square feet or higher. Another thing to note is the GSA, over 80% of the buildings in GSA are within mild climate zones. And also, one thing to really take note is that our portfolio can be considered ahead of the curve as far as energy savings. By and large, most of our facilities are Energy Star 80 or higher. And then with the Department of Energy, so the host sites range from federal buildings that are outside GSA's jurisdiction to privately owned buildings. So a much broader range of buildings that you can choose from there. At this point, I think we want to take another poll, Andrea. Take a brief pause here so we can ask about your past participation in federal technology testing programs. So if you wouldn't mind answering the poll here, let us know what and who you've participated with, so we can get an idea of what type of experience you have working with us. And Andrea, let me know when you're ready to show us the results.
Well, we'll give it a few more minutes. Not a few more minutes, a few more seconds. We'll just. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll so we can keep going.
Wow, a lot of activity, a lot of experience. That's really good. It's nice to know that some of you have had some past experience. Thank you for answering the poll. All right, moving on, let's go to the next slide. So the RFI timeline, this is important. As I said, we opened it up in the first week of October. We basically have 4 weeks remaining. December 4th at the 11:59 p.m., that is the cutoff for submitting your RFIs. The RFI process is it's time consuming, so I suggest you start completing your application well before December 4. From that point, in December, we're going to be sorting through all of the applications. We're going to be working together, GSA and Department of Energy, to review all of the applications and determine which technologies have the best fit for what we're looking for. So that process will take a little over 2 months till February 4th. After that point, we will be notifying semifinalists after they're identified, hopefully by the next week. And then what we will do in mid-March is we will have a presentation from each of the semifinalists in front of a group of experts from GSA and Department of Energy. This is something that we typically do in person. We're not optimistic that that'll happen this year in March, so we'll do this virtually. But we will have a 25 to 30 sustainability technology experts that will be on hand to witness those presentations, and then from that we will be determining the finalists. So for the rest of the month of March, we will be selecting those finalists and then communicating that with the semifinalists on who's made the final cut. How many we're going to be selecting has not been determined at all. It all depends on what we receive and what technologies we have. Let's go to the next slide, please. Assessment timeline. So if you're wondering, what are you getting yourself involved in here? What does the timing look like? Every technology has a unique timeline, considering how complicated the technology is, how complicated the installation is. There's many factors, but typically we're looking at a 2 to 2.5 year timeline. See here for the first 4 months, we're going through the selection process, and then site selection and installation will occur during the summer and fall of this year. And then from that point on, for approximately a year, we'll do M&V, of course, determining on the technology. And then approximately the same amount of time sorting through all of that information, all of the data, and writing the report. So starting now, the most normal case scenario, we will see a completed report that will be ready for distribution by April of 2022. And we can go to the next slide. So on our website, gsa.gov/GPG, all of this information is provided. There are also some email addresses, I believe myself included. We have a GSA email address. If you need to ask direct questions, you're welcome to do that. And I think we can go to the final slide. All right. Time for question and answer. Thank you everyone for your patience with all of this. We've got about 20 minutes remaining here, and we've got a number of questions. So I will begin with some of the questions that you entered into the Q&A. If you're wondering how to ask a question, on the bottom of your screen you'll see something that you'll see a logo that says, or a symbol that says Q&A. Go ahead and click that and enter your questions. Andrea, are we ready?
We're ready, yeah. So go ahead. We have them copied over, and you can go through the questions that are highlighted there in yellow.
Okay, well, first off, lots of questions. Thanks everybody for participating, and we will hopefully get through most of these. If not, we are going to be providing this presentation, all of the Q&A and answers and feedback to you hopefully by the end of next week. So any questions about, will we see the presentation? Can I have it? How are we going to do the Q&A? Where are those answers? We will be sharing all of the information with you within the next week. And if we don't get through all of the questions, don't worry, we will answer them and that will be provided to you. So question number 1 here. The first question on the submission form asks if we are going to donate the equipment. What happens if we cannot afford to donate the equipment to be tested, as it is expensive? Well, the GSA's GPG program requires that technology be provided at no cost. Let's get this answer here. Unconditionally gifted. Now, this is a long answer.
And maybe, Kevin, you want to just jump in, and we'll just turn that question over to you.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Okay, sure. So the first thing is that you are submitting one application for 2 programs. And in the case of GSA's program, you do have to provide the technology at no cost via this unconditional gift authority. And the reason for that is really about our program mechanics. And it basically is taking you outside of the procurement process. And it's also really a much simplified paperwork process, and really protects your IP in a robust way that, again, is very, very simplified. On the other hand, if you're applying to your same submission, you could be selected. You could be selected for both the GSA and the DOE. You could be selected for just GSA or just DOE. In the case of the DOE program, that's a different scenario and does not require the gifting at all. So, and I don't know if anybody from DOE wants to speak more to that, to that side of things. Yeah.
Amy, do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So in the commercial space, we are working with private sector partners. So I'd love it if Hayes could talk a little bit about thoughts about other non-GSA partners. But in the private sector, what we're doing really is facilitating possibilities, and we are looking for you to work with the site to figure out the structure and a mechanism for getting the technology into the building. So it's a much more flexible, I think, platform, but we are not funding the technology. We are not funding the installation. We don't have budget for that. And also we cannot compete funding for that. It would take us years. So it's really up to you to work with the site in order to get that technology into the building. We then will help with the monitoring, verification, publication of the report, project management, and the sort of external pieces of that. Oops.
Great. Do you want to, Michael, can you move on? We'll move on to the next question.
Okay, next question here. So if the technology you want to submit is for outdoor applications only, would that be considered? So basically just used in outdoor spaces, parking lots, pathways, green space, etc. It's definitely not something you can use inside. Wally, would you be able to answer that?
Sure, yeah, I can take a crack at that, and then feel free to jump in, anyone else. The four walls or outside the four walls of the building not necessarily important. What we're really looking for is a technology that addresses or one or more of the areas that was outlined during the presentation. So short answer is no. Would need more details about the technology itself and what it's doing to provide a better answer.
Thanks, Wally. Next one then, Kevin, I'm going to tee this one up for you. How much does GSA lease, and how do facilities compare on energy consumption to the rest of the U.S. commercial office space?
Okay, yeah, great question. So basically GSA operates approximately 185 million square feet of federally owned space. We have a similar amount of space that we lease from the private sector. The space we lease from the private sector, that is to say it's privately owned and operated, actually has an energy profile that's relatively similar as far as we know to just typical office space in general. But the spaces that we own, the federal portfolio, it's about a third more efficient than the commercial counterpart based on CBEX data. And a lot of that efficiency stems from the fact that we've had a whole series of targets for 40 years to make federal buildings more energy efficient. There's also, legislation like the Energy Independence and Security Act that requires us to do that. So that's the basic, that's the high level view. But the important thing, I think, for folks on the phone to understand, or I should say on the Zoom to understand, is that, so when you are putting your technology into place, the upside of a federal location is that it is a very efficient location that it's a high performance building, basically. The other side of it is that low hanging fruit has really been picked, so to speak.
Thank you, Kevin. Another very good question here. Building, and this one, Robert, I'm going to ask you to take this one on. Building integrated PV, does it have to be manufactured in the USA?
Yeah, in general, we are focusing on facilitating expansion of domestic manufacturing capability, and so we are specifically looking for United States manufactured systems.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Next question. Our technology addresses several of the categories. Do we apply different times or include all information into one submission? I would say that, well, I guess the question should be asked to Kevin and Andrea. In the past, how has that been handled?
I would say you want to, yeah, you want to pick where it fits best and then go with that.
Okay. Moving on here, can a local government still sign up to serve as a potential test bed? Maybe that one would be good for you, Wally or Amy.
I already answered it, and please, yes, send me an email.
Okay, great. Next question, for cost savings, are greenhouse gas emission reductions converted with a cost of carbon part of the savings that GSA is including in assessment factors? That one I think we'll throw over to you, Kevin.
Yeah, that's, so, you know, let me be as diplomatic as I can possibly be. I think that the answer to that question is going to depend on the outcome of the current election.
Understood. Okay, next question here. Will there be an option to choose which host site we can implement our technology, or have we already chosen specific locations for each category of product? And the answer to that is there are going to be options. We're looking for your input on a suitable location for installing and testing your technology. Is there any, next question, is there a requirement for the scale of the proposed project? I guess the best answer to that is it depends on your technology. What we're looking for is a suitable testing amount that will give us a good idea of how your technology works. So yeah, that's a per technology requirement there. But we don't want to go over what we need. We want to have just enough. Now, if we're talking about indoor air, we want to maybe segregate a floor or a section of a floor, or possibly a small building, something of that nature. But all of these things are dependent on the specific technology. Okay, next question. I was confused by the difference between technology gifting and UESC implementation. In the UESC scenario, does there have to be an existing UESC to tag onto? And then could you explain more about how the UESC option could work? Kevin or Amy, can you take that?
I'm going to make a first cut at this, and I'll make a first cut at this, and then actually if Amy or Hayes or anybody else wants to dive in and add, that'd probably be useful. The first thing is that we have always been interested in doing a project like this, that is to say a UESC, essentially an effort that is combined with a utility. We have not to date done one, and the kind of timeline can be a little long for pulling together a UESC. So my advice would be, well, the first thing is, if you had a UESC project that is already underway and that you're looking to insert this technology for evaluation as part of that UESC, and we have gotten really close to doing that a couple of times, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's a total win. If you had if you were to submit you're going to submit your application and you're going to say, here's my utility partner, and they're very interested in doing this as part of a UESC, I think we could figure out how to make that happen. If you said, here's a technology and we'd like you to find the ability to finance it via a UESC, that's probably not going to work. That'd be my answer, but I want to have Hayes and Amy take a crack at this too if they're interested.
Sure, this is Hayes. I can jump in. I agree with what you're saying, that I think you know, kind of the more the partners come to the table in the application probably makes it more realistic. Again, like you haven't seen this come together as an example, but something we're, you know, would be interested in. But as you were saying, I think the further along in the process, probably the closer to success, the greater chance for success.
I'll just add one thing, and that is that we have done projects where it's not a fully developed and finalized, you know, UESC with utilities. So utilities contributing in a different way, whether it's through maybe some rebate or pilot program funding, or you know, so there are unstructured ways of having utility participation too, and we highly recommend that, and because if you bring a utility to the table, the likelihood that they'll grow the opportunity through a rebate or incentive or other program is much bigger. So even if it's not a full UESC, I think bringing a utility to the table is something we definitely want to do.
Thank you, everyone, for the response there on that question. I'm going to keep moving here. We're starting to run short on time. Question here is, are we able to offer more than one new technology? Short answer is yes. I would recommend a separate application for each technology if that is the case. Next question, can multiple companies participate as a unified solution in order to deliver a holistic solution? I think that's also a yes. Kevin, Paul, if you could go into that just a little bit.
Yeah, no, we are super excited for that kind of approach, actually. So we recognize that solutions that are comprehensive rather than just, you know, an individual widget kind of thing, particularly in response to this RFI, that is going to be a good thing. So in fact, it may really take a team to deliver. Our last RFI was focused on grid interactive efficient buildings, or GEBs, and every single one of those, the selected submissions was a team.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question, does the GSA or the BTO have any residential buildings? Amy, I think that might be for you.
Yeah, so we have a whole program devoted to residential. However, we do work with a lot of multifamily stakeholders, including multifamily developers and operators. So if that's an opportunity for your technology, that'd be great. If it is only for like single family homes, I'd say shoot me an email. Let's talk about that, because I'd love to introduce you to some folks on the residential team. I'll respond to your question and with my email. I think you already have it too.
Thanks, Amy. Next question, I'm going to ask Kevin for you to answer this. Do vendors need to propose a demonstration location?
Oh, short answer is no, you don't. But you are more than welcome to do so. So if you have, if you think there's some location that you have in mind that you think would be perfect, absolutely. That if you have some location that you think is absolutely perfect and you've already spoken to the facility manager and they're on board, you'd want to include that in your materials and sort of mention that for sure. But assuming that you don't have any knowledge of any of our buildings or locations or anything like that, what we will do is actually match you up with a location that will be a good one for evaluating your solution.
Thanks, Kevin. Next one, and Kevin, you might be able to help with this. Can a private host site purchase the equipment for testing?
Yeah, well, that would be the DOE side, and yes is the answer. And I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, Amy, or anybody
No,
else.
but I do see another question here that's kind of similar, and that is what specific private sector coordination needs to be complete. And I'll just say our process is to get information about the technology. The labs will help us develop site criteria, and then we actually go out to partners and say, are you interested in participating with us? And once we get interest, then we will have a more detailed conversation with you and the lab in order to understand if it's a good fit. I'll just say from lots of experience doing this, it's really hard to find good sites. So it being more generalized, more applicable is going to suit all of us better. It's going to end with the better result.
Thanks, Amy. Here's an interesting question. What about equipment that may take special equipment or special job training to install? Is there a channel to donate funds to cover the installation costs with GSA?
I guess that's a question for me. We have, so the short answer is the structure of this gift authority requires us to fund the installation. That said, we have funded installation that is by a, essentially by a vendor selected, like on an innovative technology, we have worked with the vendor to identify perhaps their channel installer, and we would fund that. I don't know if that fully answers that question, but the basic idea is that we need to pay for its installation.
Okay, I think we've got time for just a couple more questions here. And this, I think, Kevin, would be another, this is similar to a former question. Can technologies be bundled together to create a complete solution?
Whoops, yes.
Okay, next question here. If the technology already has independent global third-party testing, does that have any relevance to the approvals of the new technology by GSA or Department of Energy?
I'll take a first whack at this and others jump in as you see fit. We absolutely are looking for that independent testing. So when you're submitting your materials to the RFI, you should absolutely reference those tests. And that's part of what we're looking to as essentially a prerequisite almost. What we're really saying is we want to have technologies that have some degree of validation, that essentially there's already been an alpha test. And what we're looking to do here is to install this in a real world setting that is the type of buildings that we actually own and operate, to have confidence that it will work with the kinds of people who install and operate technologies in our building.
Okay, great. Andrea, I think that we've run out of time. I think we're at the top of the hour. Would you please close it out for us?
Yes, great. Thanks to all the panelists. Really interesting, and thanks for all of the attendees. We're really looking forward to your submissions. If you have additional questions, feel free to email us. The contacts are here. We will be emailing out a copy of the slides, as well as a recording of this webinar. I realized we did get a comment that the online submission form is stripping out hyperlinks and graphics and text formatting. That's true. It does not do a great job with that. For links, you have to, instead of like adding a link to your Word, you actually have to put the entire long link there, like in parentheses or something. So you can't do hyperlinks. You can put links to graphics. That's a way you can upload files. So that's the best way of going about that. And we'll send answers to some of the questions that we didn't get to. We'll send those along with the list of frequently asked questions that are already posted on gsa.gov on our GPG web pages. So thanks again for all of you joining us, and we look forward to your submissions. Bye.